Welcome, everyone, to the Success Elevated podcast. As always, I'm your host, Hayden Lee, and I'm joined this week by a very special guest. Really excited to have him on. We've been, he mentioned at the beginning, we've been kind of strategic partners for a while now, but now we can actually kind of sit down and talk shop a little bit more, which is really fun for me, if for nothing else, selfishly. But I'm excited to chat with today Dan Cassara, CEO and founder of the Core Group. Dan, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Hayden, thanks for having me. Appreciate being here.
Oh, super excited. This is just another great example. We've had a handful of episodes recently where we've had people reach out to us here at the podcast and at Spot On Solutions, and they've been some of my favorite episodes, which I love that I don't have to beat the pavement and go sell the podcast to everybody, that people have kind of found it and decided they like it enough to come on. And this is another great example. Your marketing team found the podcast, sent an email and was like, hey, we'd love to come and chat with you guys. And it's just another great example of how we can kind of connect some of this industry. And again, one of my favorite things about the restoration industry, we talked a little bit about it in a recent episode, but one of my favorite things about the restoration industry is how good the people are and how much they care about not only themselves, but like the other people in their industry, and they want everyone to be successful and to grow their business. And this is just another great example of it. So Dan, again, thanks again for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be awesome. So first and foremost, as I'm sure, people are probably for the most part familiar with Core and probably familiar with you. I've seen that you're pretty active on like LinkedIn, stuff like that. But if you wouldn't mind, maybe just kind of give our audience a little bit of a background of who you are, your career that led you up until, Core. I know you mentioned kind of briefly before we started recording that Core has kind of been an idea that's 20 years in the making. And so I want to make sure we talk about that. But first and foremost, give us a little background on who you are and what you've been doing for your career.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually got into this space because my brother is a restorer. Okay. And at one point in time, both of my brothers were restorers, but my one brother, I'm the youngest of three brothers. And so my middle brother was a restorer, and I was in advertising. Actually, I was selling advertising and was a publisher of a magazine. And that was sort of my career trajectory at the time. And he called me up one day and said, had you ever thought about selling restoration? And I said, well, if I knew what restoration was, I'd be sure. What is that? What
yeah,
does that
sure.
mean?
Let's do it.
The average consumer, I'll tell you, does not know what this industry,
nope.
This really special place exists until they need to know us. That's when they,
exactly.
That's always the word. But yeah, so I joined a company he was working for. He had been there for about 10 years, and joined them, and honestly thought I was only going to give it 90 days. I thought there's no chance I'll be here, longer than 90 days. And I fell in love with it pretty quickly. It was just a great company and great operations, everything. And we helped build a company that was at the time doing, 2.5-3 million to about a $35 million company in the next 3 years. And it was just such a treat, and it was so much fun, and we had the best time, and still talk to some of those employees today who were just part of this really special time. And honestly, from there, back then we were a part of a bigger system of contractors. And so I approached the CEO of that company and said, I'd like to teach other contractors the value of like the system, right? The value of what it means to be a part of something bigger. And that's exactly what I did. So I took the bull by the horns and said, I'm going to go join them and help build their systems. At the time, they were called Disaster Cleanup International. Now they're called DKI today. And so I joined them, rebranded the company to what's called DKI today. And through that course of time, helped the company grow, and then left for a year or so because I felt as though technology was really on the rise, and I really wanted to focus my efforts there. And I'm kind of a little bit of a tech geek, so I thought, let's do this. And so I actually joined Next Gear Solutions as one of their early employees. I think it was like employee 20 or something like that. And worked with them for about a year. And then after that year, went back to DKI and took on the role of CEO, and at the young age of 34, and spent the next 4 years building that company up until it was sold, and all these changes kind of happened in the industry. But so I've built and developed and led a few managed repair networks. I've built a couple contractor networks, but Core was different. Core was very, very different, and I think there was a moment in my career where I just kind of said, I need to build something different, because there's a lot of different things out there, and those things serve a purpose, but I don't think they're serving the industry. And so we built core as a means to elevate the industry. So we could build a brand that if somebody could affiliate themselves with it, like another company could affiliate themselves with it, they would be proud to affiliate themselves with it. And ultimately it would be elevating their business and therefore the industry. And hence why we started core.
Oh,
So
it's amazing. Such a
that was
great
like
story.
20 years in like two seconds. It was like,
Yeah. Well, hey, you've only, you've been a part of just some small name businesses like DKI and Next Gear Solutions. I love that. And obviously we could spend hours talking about, I'm sure, your times with each of those, but very, very well-known names in the restoration world. And that's cool that you've got so much experience there. And I think, yeah, you've transitioned it perfectly into our conversation about, what is core. As with most businesses, most people start a business because they feel like there's a problem either in, the industry that they're already in, but there's a problem in the world that they believe their business can solve, right? Like I feel like that's the basis of most small business, large business, doesn't really matter, that there's a problem in the world. They feel like their company, that they themselves can solve it. What do you feel like, and I feel like this will lead right into, what is core, but what was the problem that you were seeing in the industry, or maybe it was individual restores you were seeing problems with what they were doing? What was the problem that you feel like you needed to solve with core?
Well, it's what's interesting is what I think in property restoration, you've got companies that are truly restoring lives, right? Their job is to take someone, whether it's a home or business owner, from what could be the most difficult time in their life, aside from losing a family member and all that stuff. But their properties, fire, flood, you name it, right? And you've got these really valuable companies who get into this industry to help these folks. And then if you really look at sort of the net of the industry, if you were not a consumer, but looking inward, you start to kind of see that there's a lot of like animosity between, carriers and contractors and the middlemen, the managed repair TPA middlemen and the consultants. And there's all these people that are kind of all fighting to get to the end game, but really forgetting that at the net of all that, there is still a property owner who needs to be taken care of. And they're fully not aware of the pains of running some of these businesses. So I recognize that, I was grateful to be part of an industry that through several economic downturns in my career, have seen a couple of, bad recession, bad housing market, all of that, but yet have always conquered, have always continued. I mean, through COVID, let's talk about that for a second.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this industry is not only, recession resistant, it's pandemic resistant. It's one of those industries that, you can't deny is necessary, and it needs. So for me, it was like, where's the pain point with the people that actually, that are actually doing the work, right? And these were these independent companies who were struggling to defend their profit margins, were, struggling to defend, their market share. And it becomes a very clouded industry in the sense that, a lot of new entrants enter the space, think that they can just jump on a program, or they can just, they can just do X, Y, Z, in their market, and they will just suddenly be on the map. And when you look at the number of independent restorers there are in the United States alone, the number is quite surprising. I mean, between the US and Canada, I believe there are more restorers, if you start to include all the franchise groups, more than McDonald's locations. And yet most consumers don't know that we exist, right?
Yeah.
So it was, how can I build a system that truly helps a restorer, helps them from a mechanism to give them more work, a mechanism to help them save money through the things they buy, giving them best practices and resources and all those sorts of things. How can I do that under one umbrella? And that's kind of what I sought out to do. And how could we be so valuable to these folks that they couldn't live without us? And we do that every day. Every day we wake up and say, how can we make this world that we've created, this platform we've created, be more and more valuable to our members? And we never lose sight of that. But moreover, we also have relationships with, with carriers and commercial clients and those sorts of things. And it needs to work for them too. So our goal was, how can we get into the space and create truly a win-win scenario between our clients and our contractors, and then people ultimately leave that scenario unscathed. They can actually be on good terms, actually have a healthy relationship and get paid on time and all those things. And if core can help facilitate that, then core therefore serves that need. And I think that we've been able to do that pretty nicely.
I'm gonna ask or state a dumb thing here. So feel free to correct me and say, Hayden, you've got it way wrong here. But
Even if
you
you
know,
don't, I'm going to say you've got it way wrong just to be funny. Go ahead.
feel free to do that either way.
Yeah,
But
get ready.
so to me, again, and this, your description, again, coming from someone that up until a few years ago was new to the restoration world, right? One of those consumers that has no idea the restoration world exists. Yeah. It sounds like the core, if you could really, really and I'm oversimplifying, but it is kind of like a TPA combined with like a franchise system, right? Like what you've kind of described is kind of this hybrid that gives independent restorers some benefits of those systems, right? Because everybody knows what TPAs are and TPA work, and everybody knows all of the mega franchises that are out there in the restoration space, all over the country. Everybody's hometown has some kind of franchise restoration location. So it sounds like you've built kind of this hybrid system that you get benefits from both, and you can utilize both in your work. But at the core of it, again, for lack of a better term, no pun intended, you're really focused on, okay, how do I help restorers do their jobs better, be more successful? And if you do that, then you're also going to help, Joe Blow homeowner that is having a water damage disaster. If they're having an issue and you help a restorer do their job better, like you're helping out everybody throughout. But I don't know if that sounds like an oversimplification, because I'm sure it does, but does that make sense? I guess what I'm saying, that it sounds like you're kind of pulling benefits from both and doing it in kind of this system that really, really focuses on the restorers. Am I off on that, or?
Hayden, you've got it all wrong.
I knew it.
And I warned you. Yeah, no, you've got it partially wrong. I will tell you.
Okay. Okay.
So, we are a franchisor, and that word so for the independents that are listening to this, it shouldn't scare them. Like we are not. So, because there is this weird like franchisor.
So that's perfect that you're answering this, because that was going to be my next kind of like franchise systems. People get nervous because they're like, you're taking all my money, right? You're taking top line revenue. So like, talk a little bit about that.
So we are a franchisor because legally we have to be. And so the Federal Trade Commission requires that if you do three things, you have to be a franchisor. And to overly simplify this is, if you let another company fly your flag. So if you think about our members have their brand, a member of CORE. So that's flying my flag. The second one is, do you sell territories? Do you have protected territories? And the third one is, do you essentially help them grow and scale financially? I mean, that's oversimplification, but you get the point. We do all three. And at the end of the day, we have to be a franchisor. Now, we are a hybrid franchisor because we've got 3 tiers of members. We call them members, not franchisees. And so we've got the top tier would be a company that's been in business a minimum of 10 years and doing consistently $15 million in revenue 3 years consecutively. Then you can be what's called a CORE Elite member. And we actually have a limited number of seats in that category. So we don't have an unlimited. So it's not like, oh, we'll just sell that as many territories, right? We only award them to a very limited group of folks, and there are limited territories. And so that's a CORE Elite member. And then you've got a core member, which is a minimum of $3 million in revenue and three years in business minimum, $3 million in revenue for 3 consecutive years. And they've been in business at least 3 years. Many of them obviously did more, and that's a core member. And those members in those 2 categories, essentially there's an upfront core investment to be a part of CORE, and then they pay a monthly, essentially a fee once a month to stay within the membership. And so the one thing that is unique about all of our categories, and I'll get to the third one in a minute, is that the one trait that our companies have is they have to support and foster collective growth, which means you can't have a company that says, I want to get all that CORE gives me and come into the system, because we've got some really big members, big members, very big members that are bigger than CORE corporate itself, right? And those members, you can't have a system where folks come in and just give me what I can get out of this, and then I'm out. It doesn't work that way. They really have to contribute. So there is a member vetting process as well that we go through, and it's quite extensive, down to our members actually also vote in our members. So it's not just like you can apply for CORE and we just take anyone. We are very, very diligent about your reputation. We talk to previous customers, all of that, to find out if it's a good fit. Our third tier is what's called a branded member, and that's, you may have seen some of those on social. There's Core by XYZ Restoration. We've got Core by KHI, Core by Noble Pro, Core by Dodona, Core by AHS. These are actually fully branded. That feels more like a franchise. They get access to additional resources and coaching and tools and that sort of thing, but that's a royalty-based model. So that's, but we do have the lowest royalty in the industry. So it's not a, we're taking X% of your top. It's not a scary number, right? But the difference is also, these are already independent companies. So they're already in business. We're not teaching them how to be restorers. We're teaching them how to be better restorers and better business people. And that is what we do here at Core. So we've got that. That would be why people think, oh, they're a franchise. So that's the one piece. We also have what's called an Encore affiliate, and that ties to the other side you were speaking to, which is, again, a hybrid managed repair business. And so we only do high net worth and commercial clients. That's all we do. So very niche, very boutique. We're not trying to be the biggest in the industry. But our clients are the best in the industry because what they focus on is customer experience. They don't want to send our providers into their homes and, one and done, get in, get out, hurry up, check those buttons, do all those tasks, some of which don't even matter, all of that stuff. And then to manage against those metrics, I think is a false number, because when you're in the high net worth or you're the commercial space, that experience, that exchange matters, especially especially with high net worth, you're paying a lot for premium. So when there's a group of technicians and whoever coming into your home, and they're in such a quick hurry to get out because they're worried about their scores, right? They're not really taking the time to help that home and business owner understand the full severity of what's happening. So we've built that. In that group, we have about 850 Encore affiliates all over the country. And that's actually made up of all brands. So we've got franchise folks in some markets. We've got, it's mostly independents, but we have some franchise folks of every category. So every franchise brand in the country that you are aware of is a member of Encore in some level. And then we've also taken it further. We produce some really amazing industry events. Like, I can't understate that. Our events are over the top. And then we also built the largest buying program in the industry. We said, how can we save contractors money? And how we do that is through economies of scale, right? So we have, a ton of independents that buy through us. We have some franchises that buy through us. And then we have some of these larger sort of, call it conglomerate companies that buy from us because of economies of scale. So we have built these really special relationships with vendor partners, almost 140 of them that are part of the Core Perks catalog. And we give rebates on some of those programs and great discounts and exclusive offerings and all that kind of stuff. That's the other piece of our business. And then what am I missing? And then we also have Core University. We just launched this year. That'll be
Diane mentioned that. That sounds really, really cool.
Very exciting. So we went, called a soft launch with it, but it'll be officially live in the next 45 days with the actual courses. But an online university that actually covers more than just technical training. It's really all about it's about everything from that technical training that they can get anywhere. And by the way, we went to every industry educator and said, we want you to work through Core University. So you can get some of these other courses through these other partners, but through Core University, because it's all in one place. So from our perspective, we said it needs to be more than technical training. It needs to be soft skills and white glove training, and how can we leadership training, personal development. And it's not just about certification, it's about actual competency. And that's really how ours is a little bit different. You can get a certification, but still not know what you're talking about. Right. And so ours really focuses on, and we built our learning platform to focus more on true competency. You can't cheat the system, right? And it's about getting the best of the best through that. So what I love about that is it's also at a price point that your average technician can actually send themselves through our courses on their own dime and not have to be, funded by their company, and then be able to say, hey, I'm Core certified and I've got these great.
I've elevated myself with this kind of training, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
Core University is an awesome concept, because I think, and most people know this, most business owners know this, so I'm not speaking anything crazy or groundbreaking here by any means, but my boss, Derek, he's been on multiple episodes with us and will occasionally co-host with me. He talked about when he first started his restoration and cleaning company, that he, you know, at first it was carpet cleaning is kind of what he initially started with. And he talked about, he's like, well, I could teach a monkey to clean carpets. Like, he's like, that's not the complex part of this. The complex part of this is customer service and how to build relationships and how to, you know, look somebody in the eye and shake their hand. Like, there's some soft skills there that have to be learned and developed. Like, you can teach somebody how to mix a solution and, you know, and clean carpets, right? Like that's very simple to teach, but there's some other, so I love that Core University, there are pieces to that are outside of just, hey, here's some technical training on how to, you know, dry out water damage, right? Or, you know, how to remove water from a basement. Like, there's more to the job than just doing those technical skills. And I love that's a piece of the Core University as well. So I think that's really, really awesome.
Last year, we actually rolled out just to core members our core certification for, it's called white glove training. So that's everything from, especially because we deal with almost exclusively high net worth carriers. That was really a way to say, these are the do's and don'ts of what you should do outside of your technical expertise on these properties. So knowing exactly who to talk to, when to talk to the customer, you know, the do's and don'ts of things to not comment on, and all those sorts of things that that are kind of unique to that high net worth space. And so we've had a tremendous amount of success with that as well.
It's one thing, it's one thing to go to a homeowner, a small homeowner, and you're in and out in a few hours and you take care of it. And it's one thing to not shake their hand there, or, you know, maybe not look them in the eye there, but it's different when it's a large carrier that this could be $1 million job or a multi-million-dollar job. One little thing like that can affect that relationship that can hurt it into the future. That's just, there's so many pieces there that you have to be on your toes. And you have to have proper training for not just you as the business owner. I think that can be something that's missed, is like, well, I'm trained and I know how to take care of this and I know how to look somebody in the eye and shake their hand, but do my technicians? And that's where the problem can come. Is everybody on your team trained in such a way that they can handle large carriers and large commercial losses? And I think that's super, super important. I keep going back to a couple of things that you've mentioned here. And one of the things that I love, again, outside of all the benefits, outside of core perks and the discounts that they receive, and outside of the training that you give and helping them grow and scale their business, I love that it's just a network more so than anything else from what you guys are doing. I think that's a benefit that I think a lot of people don't know about when it comes to franchises, that you can call so-and-so down the road that also owns a franchise and talk to them about, hey, what kind of problems are you facing? Or what have you got going on? And I think that's something that independent restorers miss out on. So I love that there's this opportunity out there that, hey, you might have an independent business, and let's say you just cracked the 7-figure mark, right? Like you just made $1 million in a year. And that's kind of a big milestone for a lot of restorers. How do you scale and push beyond that? Who do you got to hire? How do you train your team? And having this network where they can go down the road, you know, virtually go down the road and have conversations with other restorers of what kind of trials are you having? What are some pain points that you face? I love the networking aspect of Core, almost more so than anything else. Just that it's a great,
true. It absolutely is true. We call it a community. It's really community is what it is. But believe it or not, something you just said, which most people don't realize, in the traditional franchise world, and this is not me, you know, downing the traditional franchise world, because some of my, you know, closest industry friends are leaders of these franchise organizations, and they're phenomenal people and they have great systems. But in the traditional franchise world, actually, you don't have franchisees calling other franchisees. It is interesting. It's sort of a us against corporate kind of mentality. And there's a lot of, because in a traditional sense, you're selling a zip code. There's a lot of like, stay out of my zip code, stay out of my, there's that kind of happens. And there's a lot of territorialism. In Core, it's quite the opposite. So in Core, if you're a company that's, you know, just crested $1 million for the year, you can call one of our members who's doing 100 million and say, tell me about how you got from here to there, you know, and you can have those open conversations. More so, if you find those who are sort of like you can actually reach out to them and say, these are my pain points. can I come to your facility next week so we can talk about it? And they're open door, they're open book. And
Yeah.
so there truly is that sharing element, and it's so invaluable. And I think that it's so I wouldn't say it's underappreciated by our newer members, but it's until they're all in one place at our conference, like the collective, or they're somewhere where one of our marketing summits or operations summits, that's when they finally go, this is what they're talking about, right? Because it's also like when you're a part of a new club and you feel a little nervous going to the very first event, right? We can always tell our new members when they come to, the very first collective or the very first operations summit, because they're a little bit apprehensive and so they don't know each other. And our job is to make sure that they get to know each other. We put them together. We foster those conversations because our team is very much involved in that. Diane, who you spoke to, I mean, she's very much involved in making sure members are cross promoting and working together. But that's where the magic really happens. I think you're right.
Yeah.
That's what excites me the most, because they've invested in something to help them be better business people. And it's our job to make sure that happens for them, because if that doesn't happen, we've totally failed. We've completely, and yes, we give them work. Don't get me wrong. We give them work. That's all great. But anyone can give you work, but that doesn't make you a better business person.
So, no. And yeah, again, it's without spending too much time on it. That's my favorite thing, that it's unquantifiable, right? Like you can building a relationship with somebody that is experiencing something similar to you or has experienced in the past and knows how to push beyond it. It's the dollar figure is almost infinite when it comes to that, right? Because it can just completely take your business to another space. Like it's very easy to quantify, oh, okay, if I join Core, I'm going to get 10% off air movers or something, right? Like that's very easy to quantify. Okay, well, does that work into my, let me see what the ROI is on that, right? Like that's very easy to do, but there's something outside of it. Yeah. Talking about relationships that I think people miss out on. I have, we're Spot On Solutions is based here in Southeast Idaho, and we have a really awesome client here that's based here in our hometown. And he does something that a lot of restorers miss out on. And he like works with his competitors. He has close friends that are competitors 30 miles away from him, 20 miles away from him. And because he's built these relationships with them, it's helped his business grow to a point. He's been able to take on large jobs because he has a relationship with another restorer 30 miles away that he can say, hey, can you come help us on this really big job? And we'll, split revenue, or I'll pay your employees to come take care of this. Like, because he's built these relationships with competitors, he's been able to do that. And so the core relationships and having a network where they can connect with other restorers almost kind of does that for them, that they don't have to feel awkward about going to like a chamber of commerce meeting down the road. Like they have a built-in network on day one when they decide to join Core, that they can start communicating with some of these other people with it, which is just so cool.
Well, and I paid attention to one thing I noticed, just inherently, I have this thing about watching people and their behaviors. I noticed that when I would go to industry conferences, like any industry conference, whether any of them, whether on the insurance side or the restoration side or the cleaner side, you had people who knew each other and they had built kind of that like sort of loose network with each other, but did they really have each other's backs? That's sort of the difference, because they weren't all invested in the same thing. They're just, I know this guy, he's got a shop here or whatever. That's one thing that I really felt like we solved as well, because they all went through the same vetting, because they all went through the same pain to get here. Once they're here, they're leveraging that, they're using that to their advantage, and I think that's really cool.
Oh, it's so great. I don't want to spend, I think you have a wealth of knowledge, Dan. And so I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about some other aspects there, but Core is just, so cool. Real quick, before we kind of transition to talk about a few other things, talk to our audience a little bit about if they're interested in learning more, or if they want to maybe attend. I know you've got some cool events coming up later this summer. Those are probably just for Core members, but if somebody wants to learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing at Core, where do they need to go? What do they need to do?
Well, obviously the easiest way is just to go to gowithcore.com. So www.gowithcore.com, and you can learn information, or you can find information on how to be a Core member and start that process. Our conference is called The Collective. It's here in Austin, Texas, where we're headquartered every single year in July or August. This year, it's a little bit later than we wanted it to be, but next year it's going back to July. We called it the collective because for us, it was sort of like collective consciousness, collective growth. It was all about really being a part of the industry. It's actually an industry conference, so it's open to anyone who wants to attend. And while we have, yes, member only content, member only meetings and whatnot, one of those meetings is what's called our groundbreaking meeting, and where myself and my leadership team present what's happening with core and kind of what's coming down the pike with core. But for after that meeting, the rest of it's really amazing industry content. It'll give them access to how they can become an Encore affiliate if they want to be on our programs. We were recently rated top 2, best managed repair networks in the industry. Last year we were number 1. We've got more competition now.
Yeah.
So, but it's great though, because I think people are seeing that, obviously we're building something valuable. So you can learn more about the program there at the conference at the Collective. You can learn more about core membership. We do active core membership presentations there. We say we don't sell core memberships, we award them. And so it's a great chance to kind of see it live and in person firsthand. But then also really understand, like, how do I be a part of this? And it is such an amazing event that I say this to every person I talk to, and I will say it on your show as well, that if you register to attend the Collective and you don't leave on the last day, and a team member will approach you at some point, if you don't leave saying, this is the best conference I've ever been to in this industry, we will give you your money back. Truly, we'll give you all your money back. And we'll stand behind that, because it is such an incredible event. And it's been,
I love
and
it.
not we produce it, but just the content's amazing. Our clients go. I mean, when I was previous organizations, I couldn't get clients to show up at our events. They were like, oh no, we don't want to commingle with the service providers. No, our clients love coming to Collective. They attend every year. We have sessions where they talk one-on-one with our contractors. We do roundtables with them. It's really, really exciting. And then when you add that to like our vendor partners, companies like SOS, who are there to like talk about, how they can better the industry, it's just really special place. And this year I'm actually extra excited, because every year we do another cool kind of theme. And this year, because we're in Austin, live music capital of the world, festival capital, all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Our theme is, music festivals. So when you arrive at the Collective, although it's at the JW Marriott, the biggest hotel in downtown, you're going to feel like you literally arrived at a festival. Everything from merch tents to live music everywhere you go. We've added meditation rooms, rooftop yoga, a whole sensory room, a core spa with like a number of different cool things that you can do, all while you're at the conference. And all that is kind of woven into your schedule. And then an outdoor party with over 1,000 people. That's a live music festival with both live entertainment, DJs, you name it. So it's gonna be pretty over the top. It's hotter than hell in Austin.
I was gonna say Austin in August doesn't sound lovely for us Idaho.
I have
people,
to live here,
but...
so come on. I have to live here. So give me a break. I gotta go to the office every day in that. Come on.
I attended an event last year in August in Georgia. So I think I could do
Right?
August in Austin. I think it'd be pretty good. So
It's a little bit drier here than it is.
yeah. No, it sounds
it's
amazing. It sounds
amazing.
right up my alley with all the music and
amazing.
the festival action, as well as just like getting to network and connect with some really, really awesome people. It sounds
Absolutely.
like a perfect event for it.
It truly is. And I think that, contractors who come to that who are not members of CORE, and a lot of them do, we probably get about 100 every year that will attend just to like, let me see what this is about. They'll attend and then they walk away going, why did I not join this sooner? Or why can't I be a part of this? And it's just so special. It's such a cool event. And then we do other events too, but the Collective is really the big one. And so if they want to learn more about attending the Collective, it's a little bit of a longer address. You can get through our main website, but it's thecollectivebycore.com, and they can get full access tickets there. There's VIP tickets, general admission tickets, like a festival, gives you access to a few more cool things. And so, yeah, it's a really great time. And I think that, I truly, regardless of whether you're a franchisee of another brand or you're an independent, you should absolutely attend the event.
Oh, it's amazing. Love it. Well, thank you. I wanted to make sure we got a little plug for you guys there before we kind of talked about a couple other things, but it sounds so cool. And yeah, go check out gowithcore.com. Or if you really want to, if you go to the website and you're unsure, at the very minimum, you got to go to the Collective, and then you can really check out, is Dan really right with all this stuff that he's talking about? And then
you have nothing to lose. You have absolutely nothing to lose. I mean, if you
lose.
Have an amazing time and you don't say, gosh, this really was the best conference I've ever been to, you get your money back. You will have attended for free. That's it. So there you go.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Love it. Well, you mentioned something a couple minutes ago that you talked about, noticing and watching people. And I want to make sure, before I leave with you today, I wanted to talk a little bit about just some things that you've learned over your years, both in leadership and just growing a business. You mentioned that you enjoy watching people, or that maybe that you not enjoy it, but it's something that you do to kind of learn something about them. Talk a little bit about your leadership style, Dan, and what you've learned about leadership over the years, being a CEO multiple times at multiple different companies. Is watching people a part of your leadership process and learning about people? I mean, that seems like a dumb question, but like, people watching is a skill, and I think it's something that I think a lot of CEOs and leaders should be aware of. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think any good leader, regardless of whether you're a CEO or even a manager, like any good leader has to have very high EQ. You have to have very dialed in emotional intelligence. You have to know people and their body language. You have to know what people are saying before they say it. And I think that that's really that's something that if you don't have it naturally, it can absolutely be honed in on. But I do think it's important to realize one thing about, if there's anything I've learned, is that no one person has the answer for everything. So at the end of the day, I think oftentimes we as people go into situations assuming that someone else in the room is smarter than me, right? And the answer is we're all kind of in this together if you think about it, right? And if I had to really go, what do I lead with? I lead with to be as authentic and transparent as you can be. If you don't know the answer, don't pretend you know the answer. Although I've done it myself and everyone has done the fake it till you make it thing, I think you get to a point when you realize you don't have to fake it, because there's really no need for that. I think that if there's anything that I try to tell my team, both my leadership team and other members of our company, is that if you don't know something, you've got to let me know, because I don't know what you don't know. And if you're not asking the right questions and you're not telling me what you don't know, then I don't know to teach you those things.
Right.
And I certainly am not going to make the assumption that you know everything, but I also know there's a lot of things you're probably not asking me because you think I'm going to think you're dumb or any those things. But no, you've got to say, hey, I don't even know what you're talking about. And that's really interesting, because a lot of our employees, if not all of them at Core, will flat out stop me and go, hold on, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I go, oh, perfect. Like, and for me, it's an opportunity, because I love to oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, cool. And because I talk a lot, I'm an over explainer, and I love teaching people what they don't know. But yeah, if there's one thing that when it comes to like leading people, I guess circling back to, you've got to have an environment where people can feel safe with you, and they can say, I don't know the answer to this, and you can, and you're not judging them or holding it against them or any of those things, because we've all been there, right? This is not my first CEO role, but I remember my very first CEO role. I was very young, and I remember thinking, everyone around here thinks I have all the answers, but I have no clue what I'm doing. And I remember like there being some really difficult nights where I'd go home to my wife and say, I have no clue what I'm doing here. Like, I have no clue. And everyone thinks I do. Am I supposed to? Like really starting to question. And over time, the moment you get okay with that and you're comfortable with that, that's like true maturity, I think. When you can actually go, I didn't have the answers, and I still don't. Like, I just lead with my heart, and that's just what I do. And the rest of it, I remember back then I would go into bookstores have become so obsolete, it's insane. Would go into Barnes and Noble or like Borders books,
Right.
and I would go down the business aisle and I would see all these books of like everything from good to great to all of it. And I'd go, oh, there is a playbook for how to be a good leader, right? And you grab them all, and they're all different, and some of it's the same, and some of it's like, this book is a regurgitated version of this book, which is and it's
right.
like,
yeah, you can see where they got their inspiration from. Yeah.
There's a whole industry that we can talk about that alone. But I realized that like none of those things really taught me anything other than just you can have the basic principles down, but if you don't lead with your heart and you're not an authentic leader and you're not like showing people that you hold space for them to like grow within you, then you really shouldn't be a leader. You shouldn't be in management. You shouldn't be a leader if you can't do that. So yeah.
People see right through it, Dan. And I'm not a CEO. I don't own a business, but people see right through if you're inauthentic, right? Like people will see right through it. You both members of your team, clients, customers, like people know when you're not being authentic. And it's such a huge, like really, really important thing. I love what you mentioned right at the beginning. Because we put a big emphasis on it here at Spot On Solutions over the last, I don't know, 4 to 6 months. Emotional intelligence, man, like it is such a crucial thing in business. People want to say, oh, it's really important for your relationships at home. And it's like, yeah, sure, of course, but it's really important in business too. And understanding how to work with your teammates and how to work with a boss or how to work with an employee. Like there's so many different things that, you know, our HR manager, he kind of gave a training about emotional intelligence, as well as several other members of our team kind of gave some different trainings on it. But there was a statistic, and I'm not going to quote it exactly, so I'm going to try and be careful, but people that have higher emotional intelligence make a significant amount more money than those that don't. And that's like plain and simple. So if those of you out there that are listening that only care about making more money at the end of the day, if you've got to have more emotional intelligence, like that's how you're going to make more money. It's like there's an actual number out there, and it's, I don't know, 30% more money, 40%, 50. If you have a higher emotional quotient, higher EQ, you're going to make significant amount of more money. And so like, if you just look at it from an economical standpoint, like you're going to make more money if you have a higher, EQ. And I love that you mentioned that. I think that's hugely important to leadership, understanding those that you work with and being, authentic. Like all of those things are just, they're crucial at the end of the day. And I would say, and that kind of leads into, the last thing I wanted to kind of ask before we kind of move to our rapid fire questions. But as you've built businesses over the years at your various, leadership roles that you've had, has that been kind of the key piece for you, is to increase your own emotional intelligence? Or what have you done to, and you can use CORE as the example, but what have you done that you feel like has really worked to grow a business? Has it been the emotional intelligence piece? Has it been just really kicking butt with sales? Like what do you feel like has been the piece that has really grown CORE? Or if you want to use another example, but what's been the piece that's done it for you?
So when you asked that question, I wanted, like, in my brain, I'm like filtering what I want to say, but I wouldn't be authentic if I did. If I filtered, I would not be authentic. So I'm gonna tell you exactly what I really think.
Okay, love it.
We are all equipped with a level of intuition. Every single person is. It's that gut, that voice, that thing that tells you when you're in a situation like this doesn't feel right, right?
Right.
Even when everything on the surface looks right and it doesn't feel right, I think that too many people ignore that. And I think that what I have done really well, not just in business, but in life, it's how I found, the love of my life and why we got married and all that stuff, is because I listen to my gut a lot. I truly do. And people who know me personally, I'll say to them without saying, I'll say, hey, just trust me. Intuitively, I feel like, and it's me saying, I'm listening to this voice in my head. And that intuition, hands down, has helped me, not just in business, but in life in general. It's kept me out of trouble. It's me do a number of different things. But in business, I have something that I don't want to call it a superpower, but everybody's got this, where I can be in a conversation with somebody and do one of two things. I can know whether or not you're full of shit, or very quickly, or I can very quickly ascertain, is this conversation going to be valuable for what this person's looking for or for me? And if I don't feel that intuitively, I'm very quick to say, I don't know that this is worth us going to round two. And sometimes in partnerships, even like with industry partners and things, we've had these really great engaging moments, and intuitively I go, it's not going to be something. No. And because people's time is valuable, we only have so much of it in this life. I don't want to waste your time. If I don't think that there's something there, then I'm not going to waste your time and say that there is. So I've used that to my advantage quite a bit. And so and I'm getting better as I get older to sever those relationships and those people who maybe I just drag on for too long because I want to be a nice guy and all that stuff. I'm very much quicker now to say, you know what, let's go both ways. Let's part as friends. This isn't working, that sort of thing. But I think that people in general, if you want to escalate through business, you got to listen to that gut, because I think I listen to a lot of the younger employees who are younger than me, that is, who will go through like the textbook. Well, the way it happens is, this company sold for this. And there's always like this like playbook. And it's like, well, sometimes you need to just close the playbook and put it away and be totally present with that voice in your head, because that's going to get you so much further than any playbook could ever give you. And so I think that, as like, crunchy as that sounded, or maybe like holistic.
No, not at all.
It's legit. It's the one thing that, my wife has told me. She's like, you just have this way of getting to the net very quickly.
Yep.
And it's because I don't stop listening. I'm always like, yep, no, that's not going to work. And so,
it's
yeah,
awesome.
I do readings every Tuesday for $125 an hour.
Need a little extra cash on the side. Dan will take care of it for you.
Next time you talk to me, I have a crystal ball and like the whole.
Yes, yes. We're gonna have another. We're gonna have you back on for another episode, and you're gonna be sitting there with a crystal ball. You're gonna tell us all our future.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, Dan. Those two things. I think if you could distill down successful business owners, and if you want to create a successful business, increase your emotional intelligence, right? Like have a high EQ. And listen to your gut, man. Like those are great pieces of advice. And I love that like trusting your intuition, that's going to help you grow a business or create a business or whatever you're trying to do. Like trust your gut and find a way to listen to your gut. I think a lot of times people just don't know how to listen to their gut. I think that's kind of the first step, but if you can find a way to listen to your gut, trust your gut, gosh, you're going to be even that much more successful. And I love that. It's so good. It's great advice. Thank you for coming on. So what I want to do here at the end is ask you our 3 rapid fire questions. So I sent those over to you. We ask every guest that comes on, every new guest, we ask them to answer these questions. They don't have to be, rapid fire. I put that in air quotes because I don't want you to feel like
I had to talk like really like faster than I already do. I was like,
yeah. Yeah. Don't feel like this is a 10-second or less answer by no means.
I'll be honest with you. I saw them, but I don't remember what they were. So this actually might be.
Well, this is going to be even better. This is going to be off the top of your head, Dan.
Yeah.
Okay. First question. Favorite book or podcast that you've read recently or listened to recently, and maybe it doesn't have to be recently, but favorite book or podcast that you've really enjoyed that you felt like has helped you or helped you grow as a business owner, whatever you feel like. Favorite book or podcast?
Not recently. I actually buy this book for everyone who enters my company. It's The 4 Agreements.
The 4 Agreements. That's a recommendation we haven't had yet. So talk a little bit about it.
So the 4 Agreements is about 4 principles in life and about not taking things personally. There's 4 agreements that you have to live by in your life, and definitely recommend anyone pick it up. It's just it helps you be a better human to really not get stuck in your ego and all of that. So it's an easy read. It's a very quick book, but good stuff.
Love it. Second question. That was a great answer, by the way, off the top of your head. Second question. I'm sure you have a lot of hats that you wear, and days are very busy and very, very long. How do you relax at the end of a long day? How do you recharge the mental and emotional batteries that come with, running a large company? What do you do?
This has changed over the years. I think recently, my new thing is when I get to just turn it off. For a number of years, I just had never turned it off. I'm working when I get home. I'm working delayed hours, and we're working first thing in the morning. I love what I do, and this is the first job I've actually truly loved. Like love my job. So it was hard to then go from that to like what I do now, which is I literally turn it off. So I meditate, and really getting time for myself. I think that some people fill their time with other people, and all that. So I've tended to look for like carving out time to just not just go on a drive, but go for a walk. And living in Austin, you're right on the water. It's really, my office overlooks the Lady Bird Lake here downtown. So I'll go for a walk and just be with myself. And I think that has helped a lot.
I love it. That's great advice. Last question, which you've already kind of given some awesome advice with regards to like emotional intelligence and your leadership style and listening to your gut. But if you could rewind to the beginning of your career, whether it was the beginning of your career in restoration or whatever you want to choose, if you could rewind and tell younger Dan one thing, what would that one thing be?
It's all going to be okay. At the end of the day, it's all going to be fine. And all that worry and all that stress and the late nights and carrying the world on your shoulders, that worrying it's not going to be okay. At the end of the day, it'll all be just fine. It always is. It really applies to any life situation. But yeah, if I could go back 20 years and tell myself, there were so many things I worried about that didn't serve me when I look back now, that actually, didn't serve me, my health. That didn't, I'd be in so much better shape and more like, like be that guy. I'd have my hair back, like if I didn't worry so much. But I don't worry
gotcha.
because I got to a point in my life where I realized I have faith and like that everything is gonna work the way, because I'm doing all the right things. So it's, I trust in the process, and I know it'll all be fine. And it may be different than I expected, but it'll be fine. It will be fine.
Oh my gosh, Dan, I know you haven't done this. It's just awesome that it's so similar, but we have had quite a few business owners that have built large, successful companies come onto the podcast and have said something almost identical to what you just say. So to me, that tells me how important that truly is. That I think there's a culture in business, and I don't think it's just today. I think it's probably always been this way, but that you've got to work harder, you've got to hustle, you've got to grind, that if everything doesn't work out perfectly, that you're a failure, right? And I love this advice because we've had so many awesome people come on and talk about it, but it really is great advice that, hey, everything's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. Everything's going to be fine. Like also that you mentioned, it might not be exactly how you think it's going to be, but it's all going to work out. And I love that.
I'm not going to lie. You do have to hustle and grind. Like, trust me. Like,
yes.
I had this remarkable moment recently, not to self-plug myself, but like I just hit the 5-year mark with Core, and our head of HR said to me, during a company meeting, said, like, we just want to thank you for your contributions to the company. And it was such a weird thing to hear, 5 years. It feels like it was last week, but right. I realized something though. I myself and my entire team work harder than anyone I know. Like, I work harder and smarter, like, but we put the time in. Like, we have put the time in, and we have built this remarkable business that I could never have expected to be this great. It's been so amazing. I have the best members in the industry, but we did the work, right? We took the time, we did it, the whole thing. So I don't want to just dispel, like, you do have to hustle, but you have to hustle knowing it's going to be fine. It's fine. You can't just sit back and expect it to work itself out. You got to put the work in.
I love it. Yeah. Dan, thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on. I know our audience is going to get a lot of really awesome value out of this. You've given us some great advice. And I look forward to maybe having you come back on again. I talked to Diane a little bit about this, but we know you have obviously the collective coming up in August, and I think we'd love to hear a little bit more about that, especially as we get closer to that kind of coming through. But again, we really, really appreciate you coming on to the show and talking about all things Core and business and life. And we hope to have you on again in the future. So thanks again for coming on.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This has been Success Elevated, making you a little bit better one show at a time. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe on YouTube or any other major podcast platform to listen to more episodes. We are proudly brought to you by Spot On Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about how we can help you grow your business, please check us out at spotonsolutions.com.